Greetings from the Ethics Board of AMTA, most specifically from three white cisgendered women who strive to acknowledge our potential biases and who, as ethics board members and individuals, strive to embody the core values of our code of ethics and apply them in our daily decisions as well as our work on the ethics board. Our board is made up of 8 AMTA members serving 4-year terms elected by the Assembly. Nominees represent a variety of geographical and clinical experiences and have a deep interest in ethics in practice. My name is Jennifer Sokira, and I'm here with our co-chairs Jan Schreibman and Carol Schultes, who are here to address as best as we can some frequently asked questions about what we do as members of the ethics board. So, Jan, I wanted to start with you. What is the difference between the Code of Ethics document and the board's process, the ethics board process? So, for example, like implementation and enforcement of the code.
Okay, so the Code of Ethics document represents our core values and principles held by the association. And the implementation and enforcement of the code is outlined in Appendix 3, which is also available on the AMTA website. That document then outlines the procedures for handling informal through formal concerns. Other resources that might be helpful included in the code are models for ethical decision-making, definition of terms that are used throughout the code, and then many concerns have multiple paths to resolution too, which is important to note. So a concern presented may not be the whole picture. So the ethics board member goes and gathers information from multiple sides of ethical issues. The ethics board strives to be impartial sounding board and encourages the grievant, which is the person who comes forward with a concern, to identify what part of the code represents their concern. And that is often the first step that the ethics board member might ask a grievant to do, is look at the code and identify what part do you feel is being represented in your concern. Mm-hmm. Most of those that I've helped, that's the first thing we do, is we look at the code.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's also part of our role too, is to educate about the code so people are really able to ground their concerns in what we have as our document right now for AMTA. Okay, so Carol, I've got a question for you. Who does the AMTA Code of Ethics apply to, and who does the Ethics Board have jurisdiction over?
Okay, thanks. So the Code of Ethics applies to all professional members of AMTA who hold the MTBC credential, and to students and interns who are being supervised by those people. So an internship supervisor who is an AMTA board member or membership member holds those students that they supervise to the Code of Ethics. The kinds of issues that we can handle are related to the specific values and principles that are outlined in the code. What we can't do is we can't handle legal concerns, because legal concerns need to be managed by the legal system. And so sometimes people will bring us legal concerns and we have to redirect that to another location.
Very good. And another, Carol, question that comes up a lot is what to do when you observe unethical behavior. What are the next steps you should take?
Well, the first thing you should do is make sure, if you're observing something that's really serious, that clients or you are safe. But most of the time, the kinds of ethical concerns that come to us are things that people have seen, sometimes even over time. And the first thing is to look at the Code of Ethics and to look at the principles and to see what parts of the code you think may be being violated in a situation, recognizing that we don't always know the full story when we're the observer. And then when it's possible, to go to the person that you think has violated the code and have a conversation, and to say, I noticed this, when I read the code of ethics, I see this and I don't really understand what you're doing here. Can we talk about this? And I've had instances where people have contacted me about something and said, so-and-so did this and I think it's unethical. And I said, well, it might be, but did you ask the person any questions? Do you have this information? Oh, no. And so I encouraged that person to go to the individual that they thought had violated the code. And it turned out that the information that the grievant who was bringing the concern didn't have actually allayed the concerns about the possible violation. And so that person with the concern, or the respondent, was able to resolve the situation themselves, between themselves and the grievant, just in a conversation. Now, there are times when it's not okay for the grievant to go to the respondent. And when that happens, it's okay to come to us. In fact, that's what you should do, is contact us via the Hushmail account. It's amtaethics@hushmail.com, and that address is on the website. And you can contact us. You can also contact us with questions, just if you want some guidance. We're happy to provide that.
Good. So whether it's guidance or whether it's something that you're trying to work through with someone, or you're not sure if you should have that conversation, you can have that conversation with us. So then I think a question that comes up a lot is, what happens when the person with unethical behavior that's being observed to have unethical behavior is not an AMTA member?
Yeah. Okay, so I'll take that one. The AMTA Ethics Board only has jurisdiction over AMTA membership. With that being said, however, the board will talk with anyone, member or not, who approaches us. The majority of concerns are resolved through education and discussion, and that's encouraging. We encourage all members, however, or not, to speak with one another, as Carol just said. Seek guidance from one another, consult a colleague if you're concerned over a situation or behavior. Our primary concern first is for our clients. Again, just as Carol said, make sure clients and members are safe. But if an individual is an MTBC and not a member of AMTA, the Ethics Board might be able to guide the grievant, rather, to consider community options, even if AMTA doesn't have jurisdiction to handle things within itself. We might be able to provide resources that could still help in the resolution of that situation.
Thanks, Jan. And on this kind of a similar token, what happens if someone makes an ethical accusation against you? What do you do?
First, don't panic. Maybe breathe even. Perceptions of a situation don't always include all the relevant information. If someone speaks with you directly and you need clarification, contact the Ethics Board for help. If you receive a notification that you are a respondent in an ethics case, the steps for you, the respondent, will be provided by that Ethics Board member. You'll have an opportunity to talk and offer an explanation or defense in response to the grievance made against you. Please realize this is a process to help everyone and not a finger pointing session. So we really want to understand all sides of the situation.
So to that concern too, often, sometimes a grievant would want to make an anonymous response or an anonymous report. So why can't they, with our current ethics board practices?
Well, the simple answer to that is because the procedures that we have established that are approved by the Assembly allow us to communicate with both parties. And if someone makes an anonymous report, I can't communicate with them. If I can't communicate with them, I can't clarify, I can't get additional information, so I can't go to a respondent with this vague piece of information, realizing the grievant probably thinks it's very specific and that I should be able to do something, but it doesn't have all the information we might need in order to really process a case. So anonymous is not an option, but we hold this in confidence. Only the people involved in the case know who's involved in the case. Other members of the ethics board don't know. Only the person who receives the initial email and the person who reaches out and who's involved in helping with resolution knows about this, unless it would happen to go to formal hearing, which is very rare, and then the hearing panel would know. But the rest of the ethics board would still not know. No one else would know. So anonymous just doesn't work because it doesn't allow us to work the process.
Thank you, Carol. Okay, and I guess another follow-up to that is, what are the consequences that can happen when we're working the process for somebody who's not ethical?
So if an ethical violation is found to be substantiated, and that could be because of evidence presented, or it could be that when the respondent is confronted, the respondent goes, yeah, I did do that, and I realize I shouldn't have done that. And that happens. Then there are a number of possible responses. The first of which is the person says, and I'll never do it again. It was really a dumb thing to do. There might be other things that go with that, which might include things like getting certain kinds of education, improving your knowledge in a certain skill area, going and having some personal therapy to look at what the motivators were that allowed you to make a bad decision. We might suspend membership in AMTA. We might ask people to step down from a leadership role. We might ban them for life from AMTA. I'm not aware that's ever happened, but it is one of the options. But that we are limited to things related to AMTA. We are not empowered to do anything beyond consequences related to AMTA. So when someone sees a concern that is related to clients, we can do something about it from an ethical perspective, but we can't take away somebody's CBMT certificate. And those kinds of cases need to go directly to CBMT. They can also come to us to be responded to, but our actions are limited.
Very good. So as far as our role, we've kind of discussed what we do. We help people as a sounding board. We help with informal and as well as sometimes mediation or formal hearings. And we do a lot of education at conferences, etc. Things like the video logs that we've been doing lately. But one of the things we don't do, and a question that comes up, is why do ethics board members not chime in when ethics discussions are taking place on social media?
Okay, that's a good question. The ethics board members, we are a variety of different levels of involvement on social media to start with. Some of us don't even have social media accounts, and some of us rarely check them. With that being said, we try to those that are more involved, even though, try to be more impartial. And so by not commenting on some more charged issues, that is one way of not choosing a side. And though we might have personal feelings and thoughts that we would like to voice publicly, we usually try to refrain from that because we don't want that voice to be misconstrued as a representation or an opinion of the whole board. So as like other boards, we are made of individuals. We may have individual feelings about it, but we really try to be fair and know both sides or all sides. And when discussions are happening in social media, sometimes you only have one side presented.
Okay, good. And so another question that comes up is, how does the code of ethics apply to me? What are some of the values embodied in the code, and how can I better embody the code in my actions?
Thanks, Jenny. That's really a good question. because how do we operationalize this? You know, the code is this nice document we've created, but what does it mean to the everyday therapist? Well, it provides all kinds of guidance to us.
Mhm.
It gives us decision-making models to use to think things through. Ethics is a gray area. There isn't always a right and wrong solution. And so that's why the new aspirational code of ethics is really grounded in these values. And um, the ethics board worked hard to identify those core values that include kindness and social responsibility, which is really important right now, and dignity and respect, which is equally important right now, equality, accountability, excellence, integrity, and courage. These are things that, in order to put into action, we outlined in the 5 principles that you find in the code. And when you look at the code, it becomes your guide for making decisions about what you will do. And the decision-making models that are in there help us to use that information in a logical and helpful kind of way. But we have to remember that that no right or wrong most of the time, but this or this with these consequences puts us in a position of none of us are always going to be right. We are always growing. We're all on a journey, and we're living in a time when things are really stressful. People are all over the place with their responses to the various kinds of traumas we're living in. And so we also need to remember that we have these guidelines to help us, but we also need to be able to give grace to ourselves and to our colleagues, and to be kind, and to do all that we can do to strive for excellence. And the code is a tool to help us with that. So go look at it on the website, consult it on a regular basis, and use it to help you in trying to move forward.
Thank you, Carol. That's wonderful. Anything to add, ladies? Anything you think we didn't cover today? Burning questions people have about the ethics board? Good.
I can't think of any.
Anything, Jan?
I thank you for both of you for helping put this together today.
For sure. Anytime. And I think if people have more questions for us, they're welcome to reach out to us at amtaethics@hushmail.com. It does not have to be a big deal reason to call us. We're your colleagues and we really like ethics. So we're here to be a sounding board for you. And hey, what do you think about this kind of piece? That's a big piece of our role. So please don't hesitate. And we hope you will reach out in the future. Take good care.